Alright, shalom TikTok. So, in this video, I'm just going to, instead of going through a lot of detail and what have you in regards to anything that's happening currently or what have you, I'm just going to tell you that you need to assert your rights. The bottom line is, when it comes to any dynamic, doesn't matter if you're a poor man on the street or if you're somebody that has billions of dollars, you have rights that can't be alienated. Hence the reason unalienable rights, right? So you have people that'll try to proclaim, don't call them constitutional rights and what have you, and they'll say that they're natural rights, which they are to a degree, but everything's codified to where it's your constitutional rights, whether they're your natural law rights or whether or not they're directly written and enumerated into the Constitution, they are still your rights, right? So that said, knowing your dynamic, knowing what rights you're asserting, is going to give you leeway when it comes to making any argument against government. So whenever a public servant, which is what they all are, police, governors, attorney generals, DA, judge, all public servants are accountable to the law no different than anybody else, right? And in fact, if anything, they're held more accountable to the law than anybody else. But the problem is, people don't know what their rights are. They don't know how to assert their rights. They get lawyers to represent them in a court of law, and the lawyers screw them over, right? So that I've seen a number of times for a multitude of reasons, right? And in my court case, they wanted to force me to have a lawyer, right? So I wanted to represent myself pro se. They deemed me incompetent because they wanted me to force me into having a lawyer represent me, which is unconstitutional. Article 1, Section 3 of the New York State Constitution states quite clearly that I can't be deemed incompetent, so it was a clear violation of my rights. Title 42, Section 1983. I can sue them civilly for that for millions of dollars. Know your rights. So if I went after it criminally, that's what the whole purpose initially of this is. First, know your state laws. State laws are going to have in the penal code, they're going to have some degree that says official misconduct somewhere, right? In New York State, that's Penal Code 195.00. So a lot of police, when you haven't committed a crime, try to escalate to failure to identify, which is under that same code, 195, but it's .05. It's a subdivision, right? The first part is 195.00, right? Lower level. So 195.00, 195.05. So they try to escalate to a crime to get you to be compliant. And when they're doing that, they're threatening you with arrest and everything else. That's Title 18, Section 241, Conspiracy Against Rights. Because they usually and typically call for backup. That's two people, and that's what that is. It's conspiracy against your rights. They're trying to deprive your rights under the color of law, right? So the first part, 241, is conspiracy against rights, is 7 years in prison for that. That's official misconduct, which is Penal Code 195.00 under the New York State codes, right? Not a law, it's a code, but it applies to public servants. So that said, that's grounds for impeachment to where the governor or the state can't even pardon that. So that's the first aspect, if you're going to charge them criminally. So if you can file your complaint, you can have internal affairs investigated and whatever. That's one aspect of it. But you have to keep in mind you can take it up to the mayor of the city and keep going up the chain of the executive branch to have the case dismissed on that level, because the executive branch can dismiss the case because the police are the lowest level executive branch. So you can take it all the way up the chain to the governor of the state, all the way up to the attorney general and what have you as well, all the way up the chain, because they all have oath of office of the Constitution. And if your rights were violated, you can keep escalating all the way. And if they don't want to listen, then you can take it to the Fed, or you can even just directly start with the Fed. That's your choice, right? So that's that aspect of it, right? So that you go to next, if they actually do arrest you, which is false arrest, which is kidnapping under Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights under the color of law. So they threatened you, now they arrested you, right? That's kidnapping. Or even if they make the attempted kidnapping those threats, it's not a matter of coercion, it's also attempted kidnapping. So that falls into that. So that's a criminal offense. That's a capital criminal offense. That is that could get them life imprisonment or the death penalty. And the reason why it would be life imprisonment or the death penalty is because they're trying to deprive the citizens of their rights. And if they don't know any better, life imprisonment or the death penalty deprives them of their rights, where they don't have any rights. That's the only two charges to where the rights can be strictly taken away from public servants that aren't doing their job because they want to think that they are the authority, not recognizing the authority of the people. That's why you have this so-called sovereign citizen movement and the state nationals and what have you doing what they're doing, but you don't have to go through all that process. There's no reason for it, right? This is simplifying everything for you so you know how to assert your rights. So that said, if you know those two principles, assert your rights, don't take action. You can say whatever you want to and what have you. You don't have to have a lawyer present. Make sure you're not incriminating yourself. If there is no victim, there is no crime. So if there is no victim, they don't have a rational reason to come after you. If they suspect you of doing something, they still have to have something justifiable, some justifiable evidence that validates that you are guilty of a crime. They have to witness the crime. If they haven't witnessed the crime, they still have to go to a grand jury, present the evidence to the grand jury, and then they can indict you based on what the evidence that was presented to the grand jury to charge you criminally. So don't let them get away with that because they're trying to pressure you. So you have the right to remain silent, which is your Fifth Amendment, so you don't have to say anything to them, right? Especially if you haven't committed a crime, you don't even have to present them with an ID or anything like that. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to charge you civilly in a traffic infraction. And a traffic infraction that's not a crime, especially if it's absolute application, they can't arrest you for a civil infraction. They need to have a crime to arrest you. So that would be the failure to identify you. You could say good citizen, what have you. You don't have to present your ID, anything like that. Know the rights, know the law, right? So the case law, you can go to my website and I'll try to have it on here as well, right? So that said, it's also an act of treason, right? When they're depriving you of your rights, that's an act of treason against the United States because we're under the United States Constitution, not the state constitution, not under the penal code, not under anything that violates your rights is automatically null and void. It's not a law, right? So that's what a lot of people don't understand. So assert your rights. Don't fight back. You have a legal justification to fight back if you want to defend yourself. But at the same time, I wouldn't recommend it because it's only going to escalate the situation where they're going to justify hurting you or harming you or killing you. I'm a pacifist, so I won't do that, but you do have a legal right to do that if they're falsely arresting you, regardless of whatever state statutes and laws state, because the case law indicates that clearly. And that's also in the Constitution because the citizens of the state, at least in New York State, are deemed to be part of the militia. The unorganized militia, doesn't matter if you're part of the armed services or not, and therefore our obligation is to protect and defend the state as well as the United States. So that's an act of treason under Title 18, Section 2381, right? Which I'll have a picture of that here. Then likewise, their co-conspirator, if that co-conspirator does an act to protect and defend the United States Constitution when you're asserting your rights, then that is misprision of treason, Title 18, Section 2382, right? All of these are very serious felonies and capital offenses comparative to a traffic infraction, which isn't even a crime. If there is no victim, there is no crime. That's cross-application to any situation where it's not a crime. If there is no victim, there is no injured party, there is no crime, and therefore there is no constitutionality in enforcing that law, because that law is automatically null and void. They're utilizing it to mitigate your rights, and that law is automatically null and void because your rights supersede whatever law they implement, right? And they're trying to enforce. That's American jurisprudence, unconstitutional acts. I'll post that here as well for you so you can review that. So hopefully this will clarify things for people. A quick short video. I will have more later on. I'll cite the case laws as well. I'll just call this my closing credits. And I'm going to go silent for the remainder of the video to where I can flip through the different images. Shalom.